This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. And the wounded warrior just joined us. Oh, look at Tebow. Tebow, you look good, man.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
I was
Tebow.
trying some new gear, it didn't work out.
Oh, now Tebow, where are you? It looks like there's all kinds of screens behind you.
No, that's just plastic bins full of junk.
Oh, okay.
An office / storage room.
Okay. And welcome to Bill Franklin.
Hey, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Lynn. Hey, guys. How's it going?
Show us the go on, stand up, show us.
Oh, no. Oh, that's right, the surgery.
Yeah, that was
Featuring a new
Friday.
shoulder.
Yeah, I got a brand new shoulder in there somewhere.
Fantastic.
It doesn't do anything yet, but it's brand new.
Okay. Tebow, let me just check. Oh, are you there? You just got up. He's back. How much time do you have for us tonight? Now you're muted.
I have until my boys finish their movie down in the basement and come up here and start screaming.
Okay, roughly how long is that?
I have no idea, because tonight's not a school night, it's voting day tomorrow. So they have school off, so Mom's letting them stay up late. I don't know.
Well, look, here's what we'll do. We'll kick off with Alden, if he would like, and then we'll come to you first after that, because we know you have to go. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. And if you suddenly think you've got to go, let us know, because we got to get your update. You're looking good, man. I mean, I don't know what's going on, but you are looking very, very well, which is a thrill, I have to tell you. Just one quick, I have a couple of things on my mind, but there's one quick thing that I do want to mention up front, which some of you know, most of you do not, is that Eric Bookbinder decided to go into hospice last weekend. Unfortunately, he had a couple of issues about 10 days ago. And he was in and out of the hospital, and then he spoke to his doctor, Dr. Agarwal, and Agarwal said, look, I just don't think that you should keep chasing this. There really isn't much more that we can do for you. So he decided to go into hospice. They gave him Ativan, which is lorazepam. And he seemed pretty calm when I spoke to him, which I'm very relieved to hear. He had a session with Dr. BJ Miller during the week, and I actually happened to hear from BJ during the week personally. And so, I think everything is copacetic. But he's stopped treatment and he's involved home hospice. So just to let you know, and if anyone would like to reach out to speak to him or to send him a note or what have you, just please email me and I'd be happy to give you his contact details. I'm sure that he would be very grateful to hear from anyone and everyone at this point. Okay. Alden, what we usually do is we give men who have never been in the group before some time at the beginning of each session just to let us know a little bit about their situation. why they're with us in this group and what questions they have on their mind. Is that something that you would be comfortable doing, or would you prefer just to listen in at this point?
I appreciate your offering me that option. I will speak briefly, but if I do, I would preface it by saying that I did attend the meeting for the first time 2 weeks ago. So, and I did speak then. So if there's anyone else who is on the call who has never participated before, I would invite them to go before me.
So the meeting 2 weeks ago, was that Peter Kafka's meeting? Was that the meeting? Okay.
Yes, I didn't know there was a difference. I wasn't sure how often the meeting is, or if it.
Okay. So let me explain.
Okay.
We do have two different meetings here, but you're free to attend any and all of them. This meeting is for men who have high risk, recurrent, and advanced disease.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And Peter's meeting is for people on active surveillance, low risk, and intermediate risk disease. Peter usually attends this meeting for himself, but he is having his first session of proton beam radiation in San Diego with Dr. Rossi this evening. So I don't think he'll be in the group. Having said that, if you're a low risk intermediate, I encourage you to listen in if you would like, although you may hear some things that aren't so comfortable, but you are very, very welcome. But if that's your situation, I won't afford you time to talk much about your situation, only because the men on this call are really sort of beyond that. And we don't really, we can, but we do not support low and intermediate risk. That's what Peter does. So now, if you were in Peter's call and shouldn't have been and should have been on our call, then you are very welcome to take some time.
Okay. Thank you for explaining all that to me. What is your name, sir?
My name is Rick.
Rick? Okay. Well, I am in the unfavorable intermediate category, so I am not in the high risk category because my highest Gleason is 4+3.
Okay.
So I am happy to listen in, and
Please.
I may drop out, but I will listen in at least for a while, and I think I would definitely have a lot to learn, and I'm interested in what people are going through, and I care very much, so I'm happy to just listen in, and thank you for making the time and explaining all of that for me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Now, Alden, did Peter take your email address so that he could send you a notice when his next meeting is, or not?
Yes, I did get I keep pausing because when I first start talking, I get an echo.
Okay.
I did get a reminder email from him 2 weeks ago about that meeting. I wasn't sure if the meeting is every 2 weeks, so I actually wrote to him today and asking him if there's another meeting today, and I didn't hear back, so I just called in case this was.
Oh, no, with pleasure. So just to clarify, the high risk group meets every week. We meet on the first and third Mondays and the second and fourth Tuesdays. Peter's group meets on the second and fourth Mondays at this time. So we meet on the first and third Mondays. Peter meets on the second and fourth Mondays. but we also meet on the off weeks. So, and if you go to our website, you can find it all on our website.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to repeat about the intermediate and low risk group that Peter facilitates, that meets on the second and fourth Monday of every month.
That's correct. At
Okay.
5 p.m. Pacific.
Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you, Rick.
Pleasure. All right. So Thibaut, before we go round the horn and see who would like some time, we'll promote you, because I know that those kids can come in at any moment and then we lose you, which we don't want to do until we've heard how
Yeah,
you
I
do.
apologize for all my dropouts. Most often it's just I get tired and I need to go to sleep. But right now I'm feeling okay because I took lots of naps today. So the overall picture is 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with Gleason 10. Doctor said it's highly unlikely that anything's going to cure you. So I, dedicated all my treatments to experiments. And I was in like 6 clinical trials, and none of them really helped significantly. Everything worked for like 4 months and then stopped working. And now my PSA went up to 1200, and I started chemo 3 weeks ago. I have my second docetaxel tomorrow. The side effects from the first one were many. Almost all of them were something that got worse and then got better. And now it's back to how it was before my first chemo. The only lingering effects are getting foot cramps. I don't know what that's about. And I think my mouth sore's gone. My lymphedema got worse and it got better. I guess my fatigue is the only other thing that's a little worse than before. Just take a couple naps every day, and sometimes I want to do something and I just can't. Like this evening, I was planning on going out and doing something, but I just couldn't get out of bed. So here I am at home.
Well, we're very happy that you're with us. You should know. We're delighted to have you with us. So whatever it was that you were going to do, those people will be disappointed, and it's to our benefit. So I'm just looking at my notes. Is this the first time that you've done docetaxel?
That's right. I avoided chemo for 4 years because I figured it would disqualify me from a lot of the experimental treatments that are for people who aren't too advanced. And that's true. There are several trials I did that I wouldn't have been able to do if I'd already done chemo, such as bone marrow transplant. And I actually tried to do my chemo through a clinical trial where the experimental agent was intravenous ascorbic acid. But during the screening, they found an infection in my lungs. I had no symptoms, but that disqualified me. So I'm just doing chemo outside the trial without the ascorbic acid.
What would the reason for the ascorbic acid have been? What was the hypothesis for the trial?
Well, the theory is that it both reduces side effects during chemo and helps fight the cancer. And they say that their experience with other people in the trial has shown a reduction in side effects, but it's too early to say about fighting the cancer.
Now, I want to share with you that you're not the only one with this advanced cancer situation that's going through chemo for the first time. I spoke at length with Professor Bill yesterday, and he just had his second round of docetaxel, so he'd avoided it too. He's gotten a very, very good response. He's doing fine, and he's gotten a really good response on his PSA. His PSA was not as high as yours. So he's hoping that your PSA is going to drop. The 1200 was before you started?
Yeah, that was my last PSA before I started chemo.
And have you tested since you started?
Nope, that's going to be tomorrow morning.
Okay, well, let us know, and hopefully you'll see much
Say hi.
the same. Hi. Hello. How are you?
This is Harper.
Hello, Harper.
And what's your name?
Guy.
Hello, Guy. Oh, Guy. This is your night, man. Did you know that this is Guy Fawkes' night?
But Mommy not supposed to play with it. But
Oh, yeah, they're not supposed to play with the wooden sword. So what are you doing with the wooden sword?
Let's play a game, Papa. Let's play a game with it.
All right, go play the game in another room. I'm going to keep talking here.
I want to see how.
Okay, you just have to listen, though. I'm talking.
So wait a minute. You'll forgive me for getting confused, but did we get left with Guy? Oh no, which one's Guy? Who's Guy?
This is Guy. He's a little bit bigger.
Okay, well, Guy, tonight is Guy Fawkes' night, and maybe Dad will tell you later about Guy Fawkes. But in England, which is across the ocean, they let off all the fireworks tonight. Tonight's the night they let off all the fireworks for Guy Fawkes.
Tonight. I didn't know that.
Yeah, November 5th.
You can get some fireworks.
Yeah, and
I want to see my night too.
And that's because Guy Fawkes.
Maybe this weekend we'll have a Harper night.
Yeah, that's because Guy Fawkes tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament. So there you go.
Okay, I'm going to mute myself now.
Okay. Well, so, all right. Well, we'll come back to you when you're when the kids aren't there. So I was just saying about Professor Bill. He sounds really good, and he's doing well, and he's managing the chemo really, really well. I hope Thibaut will be able to come back to us, because I want to talk to him a little bit about some of these cramps. And I know, Dennis, you've got some good solutions for the cramps, and we can pass that along to Thibaut.
Okay, I'm back. Guy says he can stop talking.
So you mentioned you're suffering from cramps. Dennis, you're our cramp master. Do you want to share some of your thoughts on cramps with Thibaut?
Yes, I will. The one thing that seemed to work the best for me, because you can put it on to prevent the muscle cramp. You can put it on when you're getting the cramp to reduce the cramp from getting really severe. And sometimes when you have a bad cramp and after it's gone away, your muscle is still hurting. And this is mostly, for me, it was my leg. And so the product I've used is called TheraWorks, TheraWorx. And it's a cream and a little pump type dispenser, and you just put it on and rub it on. And I've tried other creams, and so far this one works the best. But I discovered another thing that tends to work also. This past weekend, we were out of town with my car club thing, and I got myself to the point of being dehydrated, not necessarily feeling it, knowing it, or anything. And the thing that worked, and I heard about before, is tonic water. The same stuff you use in gin and tonic. It works in an entirely different way. Don't ask me to explain it, but when you put the stuff in your mouth and you drink it, there's some neurological thing that goes on and really reduces the cramp. I had probably some of the most severe cramping in my left foot. My toes all went one direction except the big toe that was going the other direction. And my hand, we had a dinner thing that evening. I sat down and went to cut my chicken with a knife and fork, and my right hand just kind of did the same thing. Fingers went three of them went one direction and went the other way. Get kind of painful. So I tried the tonic water early in the day, and my wife's so good. She went to the bar, grabbed me another tonic water, and almost instantly that cramp started to reduce. So
okay.
I mean, there's other remedies out there, but those are two things that work the best for me.
Thanks. Can you, Dennis? Can you just? Good night. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night, but night time. It's night time.
All right.
Good night.
Thank
Dennis,
you.
Can you mention the? Can you spell again for us the cream that you used?
Yeah, it's called TheraWorks, and it's THERAWORX.
Okay. THERAWORX, and that's just an over-the-counter that you would buy?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I found it at CVS. Seems to have a little more available than some of the other drug chains.
Okay. So
Does
Tina,
that work? Does that work when you first get a cramp, or do you put it on preventively, or what?
I use it for all three types of situations. I'll use it like I know when I play golf sometimes. If I don't do enough stretching, I don't stay hydrated enough, that also causes the cramp. So before I play, I will use it. And when I get the cramp that's associated with golf, it's not when I'm actually playing, but it's after I stop and I get in my car and I'm driving down the highway, trying to maintain speed with traffic. It's at my right foot on the accelerator. I can feel it at the top of my lower part of my right leg, just below the knee, like a shin split. Coming on real strong.
Right.
So before I leave the golf course, I put it on. And I'd say it's made a big difference. I haven't gone, sometimes I will still get it. I got to pull off the side of the road, put it on when I'm actually getting a cramp, wait a minute or two, and it goes away.
Okay.
So you put it on, you can put it on when you get the cramp and it'll work that fast?
Yes. Within,
okay,
I'd say a minute or two.
Great,
yeah.
Thank you. That's great to know.
Because otherwise, before that, I mean, it was so bad. My whole leg and foot, everything was twisting out of shape. I was in pain. These were really bad.
I've never had cramps that bad. Mine are always at the front of my right foot while I'm laying down, and it's always fixed by standing up.
Yeah, I had them this weekend, like I said, in my left foot where I never had it before. And I think the main thing for me, the main cause is if I'm wearing shoes that aren't supportive enough, or if I'm out and perspiring a lot with golf or something, exercise or whatever, I get dehydrated. And believe me, I know I should be drinking a lot of stuff, and I usually do. Play golf today, and I drank probably close to 4 liters of fluids, including a combination of coconut water, which is very good because that replaces your potassium one of these little, I got it from Costco, organic coconut water. It's probably, let's say, 11.1 ounces in this thing. It's got 3 times the amount of potassium that you get in a banana.
Mm-hmm.
That and Gatorade, so my electrolytes stay up. And the other thing I notice, if I'm not urinating, I'm not drinking enough.
Yeah.
And then you can tell pretty much by the color of the urine.
Right.
You know, it's getting to look like apple juice. You know, you're not drinking enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
When do you use tonic water, Dennis?
The tonic water, I'll take it if I someplace, you know, where I can't use the cream or don't have it with me, but I can get access to tonic water as soon as I feel a cramp coming on. You just drink it. You just
So it's not for the dehydration; it's for the cramps. Okay.
Well, it'll work on both. It'll work on both, but it works. I use it because of the cramping, and it works pretty quickly.
Yeah. So the active ingredient in the tonic water is quinine.
Well, that's what they've said, but there's really not enough quinine. If you know, when I researched this, the mechanism, and you know, I can't really explain in detail, but the bottom line was the mechanism. It's not the quinine because there's not enough of it in there to do it, but it is the quinine and the tonic water causing some type of a neurological thing. So sensors in your mouth sense this thing and sends something to the brain and reduces the cramp. So that's the way I understand it. But all I know, and it came to me by a golf buddy of mine who has Parkinson's and has similar issues with cramping. And he said, "Oh yeah, I do tonic water." Tonic water? He said, "Yeah, the quinine in it." So I had to research it, and I did, and it works. So
I have the same question about that. Is that something that you use only preventively, or does it work very fast also if you're having a cramp?
That's the only time I've used it is when I'm actually having a cramp, feel the cramp starting to come on, and get some tonic water right away and drink it. And you know, a few gulps of it, and I could start to feel it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Get some. I mean, there's different brands out there. The one I happen to have at home right now is Canada Dry makes a tonic water. Just make sure it's tonic water, not seltzer or something else, because it does have to have that quinine in it.
So I have a more important question, Dennis. How was your golf round today?
Second place.
Oh!
And I didn't fall down, and I was able to finish the round.
Okay. All right, man. All right. Good, great job. Where did you play?
We played right here in the town of Marana, just north of Tucson, where I live. It's about 10 minutes to get over to the course. It's called Quarry Pines. It's an old gravel quarry that they made into a golf course. It's really quite unique course. Difficult, very difficult. And because you go up the fairway, the ball's going down into a ravine or something. So, and for me today was another major accomplishment. I played this the first time I played the 18 holes there and not lost a single ball. I don't hit them as far anymore. That's why. I don't hit them far enough to get into trouble. Keep it in the short grass.
Let me say that if you got second place, you're hitting it plenty far, so don't worry about that.
Did you say Torrey Pines?
No, Quarry Pines.
Quarry, okay.
No, Torrey Pines, I have not played. That would be a real treat.
That's in San Diego.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that San Diego or a little further north? I can't remember. Isn't that near Pebble Beach?
No, Pebble Beach is Northern California. Torrey Pines is in San Diego, deep Southern California.
Oh, okay.
Pebble Beach is about an hour south of San Francisco.
Yeah, that's north, right?
So let's come back to you, Thibaut. We took a little side trip on cramps, Kids are great, by the way. Thank you for sharing them with us. What can we, if anything, what can we help you with the chemo from all the experience that we have, people that have done chemo who are on this call, and you know, are there any issues that you would like to raise about the chemo?
I had one really bad side effect, and I think I know how to prevent it the second time, but just in case I'm wrong, we should discuss it.
Okay.
A nurse told me a few weeks ago, I met her at a symposium, she wasn't my nurse, and I told her that I was having bone pain from my cancer and was about to start chemo, and she said, you need to take antihistamines before your chemo or your bone pain's going to get way, way worse. And sure enough, it did. And I hadn't taken antihistamines. I didn't remember what she had said. And it didn't occur to me until like 5 hours of excruciating pain. And I didn't think it was related to the chemo because it was feeling like it was getting worse earlier that day before I even started the chemo. The only thing I had taken new was the steroids they gave me that I was supposed to take the day before the chemo, dexamethasone. And, but it varies from day to day. So I thought I was just having a bad day. But it got so bad that I could barely walk and I couldn't even drive because I just couldn't concentrate on the road because of the pain. And but I finally made it home, and then I remembered what she said. So I took some Benadryl, which works fast. I started feeling a little better. So then I took some Claritin, which is supposed to last 24 hours, and the next day I felt better. So this time I'm going to take Claritin the day before and the morning before and see if it prevents that problem.
Right. And I have definitely heard that before. I was going to say to you that Claritin is what I've heard people have been recommended and is supposed to work. Also for some other side effects too. I want to say flu-y side effects, I think, as well. But yes. Now, the one thing that Bill is going to do this time, he forgot last time, is he's going to fast for 2 days ahead of time. Because he understands the science, and he's still upset with Walter Longo for stealing his science and publishing it before he did. But he is he's a big supporter of this ketogenic I don't want to say diet. Well, it's not really a diet. It's a ketogenic protocol. I mean, what he says is that if you fast a couple of days before, it puts your normal cells into a less vulnerable situation to be attacked by the chemotherapy, your normal cells. And as a result of that, he also believes that you may be able to endure a larger amount of chemo. Hopefully we'll get him on the call before too long, and so he can talk to us about that himself. But we do know, I mean, there is quite a body of evidence about fasting before you do your chemo. So that's just
Keto diet is not a fast, which is.
Well, it's not a keto diet. But it's the same principle as the keto diet. So it's a ketogenic principle.
Okay.
That is why the fasting is supposed to work.
Well, taking the dexamethasone makes that really hard. It makes me so hungry.
Yeah. But this is before. This is 2 days before. So you're only taking the dexamethasone the day of and for 2 days after, right?
No, I'm supposed to start the day before.
Okay. I'm sure. Okay. Well, if you want to talk to Bill about it, I'm happy to connect you.
I believe the science. It's just hard to do.
Can't help you with that one. Is there anyone else on the call who would like to talk to Thibaut and has any thoughts or ideas or suggestions regarding anything we've talked about, or has any questions for Thibaut?
Oh, this is David. Rick?
Yes.
Hey, this is David. So I was wondering if he did any, like, the color test or not.
Yeah, all of the genetic tests that I have taken have shown nothing inherited or actionable.
Yeah, I was just wondering. I know that obviously that's a relevant factor.
You know, it's always. When was the last time your tumor was tested, Thibaut?
Can't remember. I'd have to check my email.
But if it's more than a year or so, it's possibly worth testing again. Did Denmead look for any genetic mutations when you did the bone marrow transplant?
No.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, anyone else? Anyone else?
Yeah. Yeah, Rick, I'd like to ask Thibaut. I think you said you were one of 4 people in the bone marrow transplant protocol. Is that right?
I was the second to do it, and I don't know if there have been others or not.
Oh, okay.
I
So you don't
think
know.
they're in touch with other people. I don't know how many people have done it.
And the other fellow, did he respond at all?
He had basically the same as me. He had a temporary benefit from the bipolar androgen therapy, but no long-term benefit.
Mhm.
Yeah, but this is Jake. How long do they know that the response that you had, was it from the bone marrow transplant, or was it from the BAT, or both? Do they know which was the beneficial?
Well, it's been almost a year now since the transplant, and the only times that my PSA went down was the 3 months that I was doing bipolar androgen therapy. And other than that, it's always gone up.
But me decided to stop the BAT anyway?
Well, yeah, on the 4th month, it didn't help.
Well, we hope, we dearly hope that the chemo will give you a response, Thibaut. Let me know. Do me a favor. Tell me how your PSA does tomorrow. Just send me a note, and you know, hopefully you'll be able to check in again. And I hope you'll get the sort of success that that Bill got. I'll tell you. Let me tell you what happened with Bill. I want to say he went from 150 to 50, but let me just tell you here. I know there are a lot of people rooting for him too on this call, just like for you. His He went from 158 to 52. After that was the PSA after his second infusion. So let's hope that you go from 1200 down to 400.
I expect it will. I'm just wondering how long it'll last and how many cycles I'll be able to do.
Well,
After doing 2 cycles, I'll qualify for this lutetium trial I know about in Houston. So once I stop doing chemo, I can do that if I can find something closer.
Right.
But
Well,
there's a trial coming to Johns Hopkins soon, I hear, but I don't have any details about that.
yeah, and there are 2 trials in Houston. Anderson has a trial, and then there's another private trial in Houston. That was the one that Rob, God rest his soul, was participating in. There's a trial in Phoenix with lutetium. I will tell you that the fitter and the stronger you are when you do the lutetium, the better you're going to be. Rob just wasn't strong enough to go through more sessions, but it pulled his PSA down from 1700 to 200. But he just couldn't keep going. So
maybe I should try it earlier rather than later.
Yeah.
And then do more chemo if needed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the nice thing about the chemo that I've noticed, this is totally anecdotal, is that men who do respond to the chemo, it tends to have a fairly good effect for a while, and they can always go back and do it. So, you know, if you get a response from it, it will be great. But I would even now start looking around. The lutetium trial, I think the Anderson lutetium trial doesn't have the expense associated with it that the one that Rob did in Houston. So some do and some don't. It depends on how they are funding the agent that carries the lutetium, the PSMA agent that carries the lutetium, and how that's being financed. So, but we can talk some more about that. But there are a number of lutetium trials across the country right now. So it doesn't surprise me that that Hopkins is looking at one too.
I checked on one in Houston that I heard about, and I'm not sorry, not Houston, Phoenix that you mentioned, and it's going on, but they're not recruiting anymore.
Right. Yeah, because he's only taking about 2 or 3 people at a time. That's the problem. But you know, I mean, let me know. I mean, if you're really interested in it, I may have a shot at interesting him in you. Almeida.
Well, I have a close relative that lives nearby in Mesa, so I could definitely go there.
Right. Well, I got to talk to Fabio in the next week or so. I've got to talk to him about a couple of things, and so I'll find out and see if there's any opportunity. But you know, keep pushing on all fronts and check on clinicaltrials.gov because there are a whole bunch of. I'm sure you are looking at clinicaltrials.gov, but there's a whole bunch of people trying to start up lutetium trials, most of them in the hospitals. What Almeida is doing is it's with a different agent. He's testing, he's not using 617. He's testing something, I forget what it's called, R1 or something like that. He's testing a different agent that carries the lutetium. It's PSMA sensitized, but it's a different agent to the 617.
Well, I'm interested, thanks.
Okay.
Hey, Rick, it's David.
Yes, go ahead, David.
Just a quick input. Just a remark about the difficulty of doing that fasting prior to any chemotherapy. There is something called Prolon, which is like a package. I don't know what you call it. It's just a package diet plan that essentially mimics a fasting diet without having to actually starve yourself. I know it's kind of a patented whatever. It's actually by the doctor that's in USC that's behind all this fasting research.
Yeah.
But the idea is that you don't have to like suffer through, a 48-hour water fast or 72-hour water fast to be treated and still get the benefits. So I just wanted to throw that out there because it's, the research seems pretty compelling. It might be worth a try, if it's not too hard to do.
Yeah. Thanks. Last year, you weren't there last year, David, but last year at PCRI, he had people giving out materials on that diet. And so, the guy's name is Walter Longo. Walter. I think it's VALTER or TA, Walter Longo. And he was he and Professor Poe worked together. So yeah, we're go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if it's just the difficulty of doing it, that might be a way to to get around it. If that's all it's holding somebody back.
Yeah.
What was the name of it again?
Prolon.
Pro what?
LON. PROLON. You can buy it on Amazon.
Okay.
Was that PROLON, David?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Well, and I think I've got some. Some of the advertising material on it. Thibault, I'll look for it later. I'll look in my files and see if I can find it. What I certainly do have is a good article from The Economist on Walter Longo and the whole theory, which I'll try and send to you. I think I've got that scanned, and I'll send it to you.
Rick, there's also
yes.
a 40-minute video on Netflix called The Science of Fasting.
Okay.
And if you're a visual learner, it's a pretty good way to check it out.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, let me check through with everybody and see who would like some time tonight. And we also, before we do that, we've got a couple of people to welcome on the telephone that I don't think we welcome. Who is on the telephone that hasn't identified?
Jay Kerr in San Francisco.
Oh, hi Jay, how are you?
Tired. Go ahead.
Tired. Okay. Jake, did you get that? Oh, maybe Jake's taken a.
Nope, I got it.
You got it. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jake. And that's it. There was somebody else, but they must have.
Well, that was David. He was caller 5.
Oh, that was David. That's right. Okay, I think I've got everybody down here. So I'll go down the list. If I missed anybody, you'll let me know at the end. Len, would you like to talk about anything tonight?
I have an update if we have time.
We have time. Jake, do you have anything?
No, I'm just happy to be on my new bed. And I did get a color test, but it was no variants or no whatevers.
Oh, so your color test was negative.
Yeah, except for one unspecified variant, I think they called it.
Yeah. Okay. Rich Jackson, anything for you tonight?
No, all quiet on the Western Front. Thanks.
Okay, Eastern Front, man, Eastern Front. Dennis, anything else for you?
No, just listening in here.
Okay. Sylvester, anything for you, sir?
No, thank you.
Gary Gumville, anything for you?
Yeah, if you're bored, I have some test results.
Okay. John Appler, are you still with us? I saw him drop off. I don't think he's come back on. So, Bill Franklin, anything for you?
No, I'm good. If you see me close my eyes, it's because I took a pain pill about 30 minutes ago. So.
Okay. Okay.
You can tell us about your surgery if you have time.
Oh, yeah, I may still be on. I'll let everybody else talk first. Didn't have anything to do with prostate cancer. So.
But listen, do me a favor. If you keel over, make sure you don't keel over onto your shoulder, okay?
Yeah.
Paul Frieder, anything for you?
Nothing for me tonight. Thank you.
Okay. David Bowles, anything for you tonight?
Well, I'm going in tomorrow to visit with Heather Chang, so I guess I'll get apprised of whatever's going on there. I'm still non-detect for my PSA, but I have no illusions that with a Gleason 9 and positive margins and the lymph node left behind, that's just a matter of time before that little bugger creeps back up. So
okay, maybe if we have the time, is there, we can talk about what you want to be covering with Heather Chen. And I actually had somebody asking as to her clinical prowess recently. We were, I can't remember who I was. Oh, I know. I was in discussion with Jim McCoy, and he was wondering about Heather Chen, and I did tell him that we got good feedback from you. And Jay Kern, anything for you tonight?
Yeah, I have my usual question about Keytruda and then a question about mother's milk.
Okay. All right. So, Len, let's kick off with you.
Okay. Let me just give everyone a very quick history. Diagnosed in May 2014, Gleason 9, outside the capsule, bilateral seminal vesicles, possible bladder involvement, 2 lymph nodes in the pelvic region. Had eventually, after over a year of on and off ADT, I had radiation therapy, and I had never got down to undetectable or 0, never got 0.1. Then it rose back up to about 0.5, and my oncologist said, sometimes I've seen people plateau at around that level. Let's see what happens before we do anything. So for the next year, I remained at that plateau level of 0.5 until this past week. where it rose from 0.48 to 0.65. So not that big a move, but definitely a possible break in the pattern of a stable plateauing at 0.5. So Dr. O at Mount Sinai, he's my oncologist. He said he knows that I go down to Florida in the winters. So he said, let's do another PSA in another month. And if you go back down or you stay stable, I'll see you in April when you get back. But if it continues to rise, then we can do a Axumin scan. And if it shows something, we can just put you on ADT to get you through the winter. And then when I come back up north in April, then we can talk about some other kind of treatment. He mentioned SBRT, thinking it might be a pelvic recurrence, but we don't really know. What I learned, I was surprised to learn, is that with this Axumin scan, it is FDA approved and Medicare covers it, but they will only cover it once a year. So he said, I'm a little hesitant to do the scan right away because if we don't see anything, then you're stuck for a year unless you want to lay out somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000 yourself for the scan, you know, if the PSA were to continue rising at a later date. So that's why he wanted to wait and see what the PSA does in the next month. I think that's about it. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, this was an interesting. I don't know how many of you guys subscribe to Snuffy Meyer's publication, Prostatepedia. I copied this down from his last monthly bulletin. He was talking about cancer dormancy, and well, actually, he was talking about the explosion of these new highly sensitive scans, and he had this to say: cancer dormancy is associated with greater resistance to cytotoxic chemotherapy and hormonal therapy. The implication is that we may increasingly detect prostate cancer metastases that pose no immediate threat to the patient because they are dormant. Additionally, these metastases may respond poorly to standard treatment options. All of these factors would argue for caution in making treatment decisions based on the newer generation of scans. So, I don't know, it's kind of something to think about. I'm thinking of, you know, someone,
Can you repeat that
maybe it
for
was
us
Gary
again?
Dunhill, I'm not sure, but I think he had a very low PSA that he was concerned about and possibly wanted to do something about. But Snuffy at least thinks that that might not necessarily be a good idea, or it has some risks associated with it.
So I didn't quite get that. Snuffy is saying that these new generation scans, if they identify metastasis, what does that mean compared to an old generation scan, like an old C11 or an old F17 scan?
Well, because the new generation are more sensitive, they're picking up very small amounts of cancer. And those very small amounts may lie dormant for some time. And so he thinks there's a concern that, okay, you found a very small amount of cancer, and then you start to treat it, and if it's dormant, it's resistant to treatment. So the older scans are not so sensitive. They don't pick up the cancer lesions until they've already grown to a certain size, and at that point, it's more obvious that they should be treated.
Well, but there's an assumption in there that these small amounts are dormant. Why are we assuming that just because it picks up a lymph node that is infested with prostate cancer cells, that those cells are dormant?
Well, take my case, for example. I had a PSA of 0.5 a year ago, and for a full year, it didn't move at all. So suppose I had been treated a year ago, they would have been treating a relatively dormant cancer lesion. And it might not have responded because, at least according to Snuffy, dormant lesions are not susceptible to treatment.
Allie, come. Allie, get over here.
I mean, that's not my opinion. I'm just voicing.
Jake, could you mute David for a second for us, please? Thanks. So here's what I would say. You're not getting this scan until you see a movement in your PSA. Once you see a movement in your PSA, it suggests the cells aren't dormant anymore. People don't get scanned. Few people are getting scanned at 0.5 because it just doesn't pick up enough. I mean, there was an interesting post by Mike Scott yesterday or today, maybe it was this morning, on the gallium-68 scans. And what it indicated was that when they scanned somebody who was less than 0.5, 31% of the time they picked up a positive response. When they scanned somebody, I should step back. This was a review of some, as I recall, about 400 odd scans, 440, 450 scans. And for those in that group of 450 who had a PSA of less than 0.5, 31% showed positive scans. For those who have been between 0.5 and 1, 61% had positive scans. Those who are over 1, and I think it was less than 3, I don't have it in front of me, it was like 72, 73%. And it sort of crept up. And those whose PSA was, I think, greater than 10, it was over 90% that the gallium picked up. So I guess what I'm saying is that I'm not sure that it's fair to associate these gallium scans with dormant cells. We don't know if the cells are dormant or not dormant without looking at other factors like the PSA. Just because you have just because you have a low PSA and it picks it up doesn't mean to say that it's dormant. It does if your PSA hasn't moved for a long period of time. But that's the key. It's not the scan.
Yeah, right. But I think what Myers is implying is docs they'll do a scan, and could be a first scan that somebody's PSA all of a sudden goes to 0.2, 0.3, whatever it is, and these very sensitive scans will pick it up, and boom, right away they say, let's treat it, because there's that mentality that the earlier you treat it, the better. The earlier you treat a recurrence, the better. Yeah. And Myers is saying, not necessarily. Wait for that 0.2 or 0.3 to go up to 0.5, 0.6. Wait till you see a definite pattern of increase before you jump on it and treat it. Just something to think about, I guess.
Yeah, no, it is. But again, say, well, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence that if you treat that early, it's not effective? If you wait, it's more effective. I mean, again, you know, it's the trouble. The issue with Snuffy. I mean, in theory, that might be right, but we need. I would say, is there any evidence to support that, even anecdotal?
I suspect the only evidence is that dormant cancer cells are resistant to treatment. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
as you well state, you don't know if when they're first picking up the PSA,
Yeah.
if it's dormant or if it's going to be actively growing. You can't really know that until you look back. Hindsight's 2020.
Well, I mean, and the other thing is, and I mean, I don't know what other people know about this, but I mean, this whole idea of dormant versus active cancer cells is not something that I feel is widely accepted. I mean, what do we know? Let me open it up. Ask the group. What do we know about dormant versus active cancer cells? Anybody have any input on that?
No, I don't know anything about it. But I'd say to your and Lynn's discussion that the evidence, unfortunately, the evidence will probably come with time, right? So someone's theory is going to be borne out over time, and we're the guinea pigs. So
as always.
Yeah, I'm just.
I don't want dormant or active cancer cells in my body, personally.
Well, Rick, let me pose this as evidence for. You almost seem to be questioning that the fact that cancer cells can be dormant is debatable, but obviously it's not. I mean, we know many guys who have recurrences after 3 years, 5 years, 8 years. When I first got radiated at Sloan Kettering, there was a guy there who had a prostatectomy 17 years prior. And I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Well, I had a recurrence, and now they're doing salvage radiation." 17 years. So obviously, this guy had dormant cancer.
You know, I'm just not. I'm just not comfortable with this idea of dormant cells and dormant cancer cells. I mean, it's a theory been around for a while. I mean, that androgen deprivation, for example, doesn't kill off cells; it just puts them to sleep. And yet we know that to some extent it must kill off some of those cells, but not all of them. And the ones that aren't there are they dormant, or in fact, are there no cancer cells, but then new cancer develops? I mean, are those when your cancer comes back, are those dormant cells that woke up, or could it be new cancer? A mutation that causes a cell to go skew width, and then we got new cancer. I don't know. And I've never heard it discussed. I've never heard this theory of dormant cancer cells discussed in an academic environment. I'm not saying it isn't discussed. It isn't there. I haven't researched it. But in all the meetings I've gone to, I've never heard people talking about dormant cancer cells.
No, Rick, I definitely have. At last year's CDMRP conference, where you have a bunch of brilliant research scientists.
Yes, sure.
One of the protocols dealt with how to prevent dormant cancer cells in the bone marrow. So these are already metastatic cancer cells. How to keep them in dormancy, how to prevent them from suddenly awakening and spreading. And, with my ADT-addled brain, I don't recall the details, but it was pretty impressive, the research they were doing. And they seem to know an awful lot about what it is, what's in the microenvironment around the cancer metastases in the bone marrow that keeps it dormant, and what causes it to suddenly awaken.
Okay.
So it is discussed in academic circles.
Okay. Okay. Well, that was a great discussion. Anybody else want to chip in before we move on?
This is Jay Kern in San Francisco.
Go ahead, Jay.
My 2 cents would be that people often say that cancer is prostate cancer is a slow-growing cancer, and then people could have had it years and years and years before it was discovered. So that kind of approaches dormancy, but it's not dormant.
Rich Jackson just posted a link to a PubMed publication discussing cancer cell dormancy and versus active state. I just took a quick look at it. I didn't actually read it.
Okay, no, thanks, Rich. I appreciate it. It's general, right? It's not prostate cancer specific, but it is about dormancy.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. No, definitely. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. Okay. So let's move on to Gary. Gary, you got some. Well, hold on a second. Before I do that, Len, how do you feel about all of this? Is it bothering you? Are you anxious? Is it?
No, I wouldn't say anxious. I mean, I feel that I've been ridiculously fortunate to, with a cancer status of Gleason 9 that had already gone beyond the prostate, to have that period as I did, to be able to go off ADT for 18 months in total. That was a gift, and I knew it had to end sometime. So, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
When something happens, would I have been happier if it stayed stable? Of course. But, when things like this happen, you just say to yourself, okay, I'll talk about it with my oncologist and we'll deal with it. We'll decide what to do. I trust, a lot of it depends on the trust you have in your oncologist. I have a lot of trust in Dr. O. I really like him. He's a great guy.
Oh, that's great. And how's Joanne doing with it?
Yeah, disappointed too, but she's all right.
Okay. Okay.
It's early days, Lynn. So
yeah.
Keep your chin up, man.
That's right. And you'll test again in December, and then we'll talk at that point.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Gary, you're up.
Okay. Well, I just had my blood test done, and my PSA has remained absolutely the same, so it has not changed at all. But the reason I wanted to say something was a little over a year ago, Rick, you mentioned that there were 3 things that people should all be taking. One was metformin, a statin, and I think you said aspirin. And so I went to the doctor and I said, I need metformin, because I had the other 2. And they did not want to give me metformin, and I just demanded it. And in the end, they gave me the metformin. And so it's been over a year now. And if this is cancer, which the doctor today said, I really think it is cancer, but it's not moving. And so I'm just wondering if the metformin is making that big of a difference to slow it down so that it just doesn't increase very quickly. And the other thing about the metformin is my glucose level dropped way down, and my cholesterol is way, way better now. I mean, I have really low numbers, and my HDLs are actually higher than my LDLs at this point. So I just really wanted to say thank you for talking about metformin. I just think no matter what, it's actually really helped me. Whether it's helped me with the cancer, I don't know, but it's really helped me with all the other things. So,
is it making you less anxious?
well, no, the the Lexapro is making me less anxious.
Okay.
No, and in fact, when I went to get my metformin, I was so vehement about it that when I went back another month later, the doctor said, "You know, I think maybe maybe you could use an antidepressant. What do you think?" I said, "Oh, that sounds really good to me. I'm fine with that." But yeah, because I was so adamant about getting the metformin, and I think it has really changed my glucose level, and so I really am glad I'm doing that.
How long have you, is it a year that you've been on this statin, metformin, aspirin
Yes.
try? Okay.
Yes, just let's see. I think I started in December, so it's a year now. And boy, my blood counts were just way better.
And I have a note that your PSA is around 0.06. Is that still right?
It's 0.05, and it stayed there for the last 3 times I've been in it, and then before that it was 0.04 for 2 times. So it's been pretty stable. It's not
Okay.
going very much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the difference between 0.04 or 0.05 is could just be testing error. But having said that, I'm first of all, I'm really pleased that you're as stable as you are. Secondly, I don't really understand the science behind metformin beyond the concept that it reduces the amount of sugar in your bloodstream, and sugar feeds cancer. So maybe there's less for it to feed on. But I would like to throw it open because I know there are other guys taking metformin on this call, and they may have some input. Does anybody want to contribute to this conversation?
Well, this is Jake, Gary. I'm on metformin and have been for a year or two also, and I'm glad for you that you've had such a response because it's actually very much better than what I've had. I don't know if I've had any benefit from it at all. I think a lot of people have said it can't hurt, but it may not be helping, and that's the situation with me. But it sounds like it's making a difference for you, and that's great.
And again, I don't know if it's helping me with the cancer. I really don't. But I saw the numbers, how my glucose level was dropping significantly, and how my cholesterol got so much better. So that has to be in itself. That has to really make a difference. So I think it's been a really helpful thing for me.
Well, I mean, we have to accord credit where it is due, and in this case, it's definitely due to Snuffy, because Snuffy campaigned for statins, metformin. I'm not so sure how big he was on the aspirin, although I know he mentions it, but he campaigned on that slate for years and years, and he never really, it wasn't adopted by mainstream, and to some extent it still hasn't been adopted by mainstream, but I think it has more credibility. And so the reason that I always think it's a good idea is because, as Jake said, it's like chicken soup, it can't hurt and it may help. And people say, oh, well, metformin can cause the cramps and this and that and the other. Well, if you take it in small amounts, if you take a half dose to begin with and you titrate yourself up on it, it usually works quite well. So my feeling is that it's a good prophylactic medicine. As far as statins are concerned, there are doctors now that think that everybody should be on statins. So, and from a prostate cancer standpoint, we know that cholesterol can be broken down by active cancer cells to extract the testosterone that's in the molecular base of cholesterol. Did I say that okay, Mr. Sierra?
Yes, you did, sir.
Thank you. Okay. So, that's why statins are important. Anyway, is there anyone else that would like to say any more on this issue of the statins? We haven't talked about the statins, metformin, aspirin for a long time. I know we've discussed it on this call several times, but anyone else like to talk about it?
Well, now we know that if you're worried about cramps with metformin, that you drink it with tonic water, and you won't have an issue.
That's right. That's right. We're all gonna
Thanks
get
to
down
Dennis.
by stocking Schweppes.
Gary left out a component of his regimen that may also be helping. He drinks huckleberry wine.
That's very, very true. I did leave that out, Jake.
Yeah, but we have to know quantity and quality too. So
just when I'm on this, whenever I'm on this call, that's what I have to do. Yeah. Depends on how long the call lasts.
I see. So tell us about this huckleberry wine. Share with us a little bit about the health qualities of huckleberry wine.
Well, you just buy the cheapest wine you can find and put some berries in it, and it tastes a lot better. So that's why
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's. Is there anything else that anybody would like to say to Gary before we move on?
I would just pipe in, this David. I know I'm not harping here, but I think the whole concept of fasting is sort of related to metformin. I think some of the biochemical clinical end effects are probably the same.
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought.
Mm-hmm. 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 Well, that again, I wish he was on the call tonight, because he would certainly have some thoughts on that at a qualified scientific level. But yes, I get your point.
That's an interesting point. The thing about metformin also is, man, I would lose a lot of weight. So I really had to eat quite a bit more just to maintain my weight.
Mm-hmm. And what sort of food were you eating more of? Because that's important.
Oh, just the healthy diet. I mean, okay, so now if I have breakfast and I was eating oatmeal, I made twice the size of the oatmeal, or whatever it was. So I do have to eat more just to maintain my weight.
Mm-hmm. 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 Jake, have you found any issues with metformin with regard to your weight?
Yes, I actually lost, well, I don't know. In the last year and a half, I probably lost 50 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Maybe 2 years.
Wow.
But
That's
you know,
great, Jake.
metformin does have a benefit and I was overweight. I mean, my BMI was high, so now I'm down to 175, which is probably normal for my height. You know, if you believe the BMI charts. But yes, between metformin and the Xtandi and a couple of the other things that I take, I've lost about 50 pounds.
Kudos to you, Jake. That's fantastic. That is fantastic. Do you feel better for it?
I don't feel any worse for it. I don't know if I feel better.
Your image froze, Jake, for some reason.
I see Jake on pause. Oh, he's back.
I turned my camera off. You see how skinny I am here?
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, I have to say, our researcher par excellence, Rich Jackson, has posted another study. New research results explain how dormant tumor cells become active years later. Thank you, Rich.
Okay.
Rich is hot tonight.
He is hot. He is hot. He's doing Len's job.
Doing it better, too.
He is. Hold on a minute. Don't tell me that Jake's going to stand up and show us his svelte body. I got worried for a second. I saw him move. I actually saw him in a non-supine position.
To get my coffee. You know, I never had much of a butt. The last night when my son was helping me he actually put the bed together for me. Yeah. And I'm walking around wearing pants, which I don't usually do. My underwear fell down to my knees inside my pants. That's how much weight I've lost.
Well, wait a second, Jeff. I mean, I don't want to get too personal here, but what is it if you don't wear pants? What is it?
Say again?
If you don't wear pants, what is it you usually wear?
Oh, I usually just walk around in my underwear and or my boxer shorts.
Okay, but if they fall down to your knees, that's a little dodgy.
Well, I think what it tells me is I need to buy some smaller underwear.
Yeah. Don't wait 30 years. That's like pretty good mattress, Jake.
He was saving money for the mattress, so he couldn't afford new underwear.
Wow, new underwear and a new mattress. You're going to be a new man. Holy
I know. When I get my new underwear, then I will model for you.
Okay, I got some good Twitter headlines for this call. Okay, Jay Karen, let's go to you and your questions, and then we'll finish up with David.
Okay, I just came from my second infusion a few minutes ago, and they said don't dwell on what the PSA is, and so the last one I had was 80, and I expect it's going to be double that again or something like that. Mm-hmm. I haven't got the results back. I had blood tests done this afternoon. But is that a common thing that anyone has heard, that it takes 3 or 4 or 5, takes maybe 4 go-rounds before you see much results as far as scans are concerned, or PSA?
Well, certainly as far as PSA is concerned, yes, I have heard that you don't see the benefit of the Keytruda for probably 3 or 4 sessions. Scans, okay. I'm not so sure about, because it really depends how frequently you're getting scanned. And how many sessions of Keytruda are we talking?
Well, so far I've done 2.
And how many is he scheduling you for?
Oh, I think at least about 6 months worth. That's every 3 weeks. But
Okay.
I think he's gonna probably do a scan, and review it by January, and that's what, 3 months, 4 months.
Okay. And did you get your MSI measured before you started?
Is that bone density?
No, that's your microsatellite instability. It's a marker for whether you are likely to respond to Keytruda or not.
No, I didn't, but I have the CDK12 cell thing, and then and supposedly that gives you PD1, which is programmed death, and that means programmed death to the cancer cells. So I figure I got about 4 out of 10 chance that it'll work.
Okay, so I wasn't aware of that. So you have a CDK 12 mutation, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, and where did you get your tumor sequenced? Was it through Foundation Medicine or Guardant, or was it through UCSF?
UCSF 500, they call it.
Okay, so I suspect if it was the UCSF 500, they probably did measure your MSI.
Oh.
You might want to check. I suspect they might have done it in the course of because it's such a their panel is such a thorough panel that they would have measured MSI, I would think. I'm thinking that since you have the CDK mutation and Agarwal offered Keytruda, you might have had a high MSI.
What's MSI stand for?
Microsatellite instability.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't know. I'm just actually I take it back. I did have a note that you had that you had the CDK12 mutation. But yeah, it would be interesting to know if you have the opportunity to find out if they've measured, if they have an MSI number for you or not.
The higher the number, the better?
Yeah. Now I'm not, again, I can't tell you, I read it one time and to be honest, I've just forgotten. I can't tell you the science behind why MSI is important. Len, can you remember why MSI is important for
Keytruda?
Yeah.
Well, I think that Keytruda, it needs a target. It boosts the immune cells, but the immune cells have to have something to attack. It has to have, biomarkers, and the microsatellite instability high implies that there's a lot of genetic instability, and therefore there are a lot of cancer antigens that the immune system can recognize and attack.
Okay.
And that's what Keytruda does. It ramps up the immune system.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
Professor Bill could give us a much better explanation than that.
Yeah, and actually, I think Peter knows a little bit about this because I know that he certainly is getting his MSI tested, and he knows a little more. The one thing I do know is that the higher your MSI, the more likely you are to respond to Keytruda. But that's a a good explanation, Len. Meanwhile, we have Rich Jackson still on the call, so don't give up. We may find an answer.
And this other
Yes.
question, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I hesitate to ask it because it's kind of getting into woo-woo land, but at one of the metastatic groups, there was a guy there, and he said he's had good luck drinking a few ounces, maybe once or twice a week of mother's milk.
Well, again, the first question is, what does good luck mean? Was it if nothing else was working and he started drinking mother's milk and that worked, or was he doing other things at the same time? And how does he know? I have no input on that one. Does anyone else have any input on the benefit of mother's milk?
I'm guessing that without knowing anything, that if there is a benefit, it's obviously the passive immunity enhancement that you might get from something like that. If we're talking about purely mother's milk, because I mean the whole concept behind it is for the first 1 to 6 months of an infant's life, they have a pretty marginal immune system, and so it's supplemented with immunoglobulins that are fairly generic in mother's milk. Maybe it has something to do with that.
I mean, go ahead, Jay.
He mentioned a really long name that a Swedish study had done in around 2002 or something, ended in albumin, and maybe phosphate was in there. And so anyway, I would like to hear more of his story, but he's been treated at UCSF for years and years.
The one thing I would say to you is that if you're going to try anything like that, you've got to run it past Agarwal.
Okay.
Because you don't want to be taking any type of supplement that might impact the Keytruda.
Yeah.
And these drugs are pretty sensitive, and so you got to be checking with him. I mean, if it's not going to harm you, then he may just say, okay, go ahead and try it, but I don't think it's going to do you any good. But you want to make sure that it's not going to hurt you and it's not going to interfere, especially since, as David says, there may be pathogens in there, and who knows whether they interfere with the work that the Keytruda is doing. That's well above my pay scale.
Okay. Thank you.
Rick,
anyone?
Can I
Yes,
ask a question?
Of course.
Which CDK? Is it CDK1 or CDK4? That's the variant that if it's high, then you're good for Keytruda. If it's low, you're not.
Well,
the
variant that Jay Curran has is CDK12.
Oh.
Well, there's another biomarker that's good for a good prognosis for the use of Keytruda, which is PDL1. Maybe you're thinking of that.
I'm not sure what I'm thinking. I'm guessing. I'm looking at my color report, and I think they're totally unrelated, and I'm probably just off in la la land here. So disregard.
What was it that was on your color report that I mean, did you have a CDK? Was one of the CDKs variant for you?
No, I didn't have any variants other than one, but they didn't even test CDK12 12, nor did they test the PDL. What'd you say it was, Len? 12?
Right. But again, let me say that's because the color and Ambry to some extent, they only test a very small limited panel that are the most common genes that you would inherit as a mutation.
Right.
And so some of these like CDK12 are more likely to result from your body changing them, mutating these genes somatically.
As opposed to being a genetic factor.
As opposed to, not a genetic factor, as opposed to being inherited, hereditary factor.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Genetic inherited, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, like I said, I think I was talking apples and oranges. I apologize.
That's okay. No, that's fine. So anyone else want to comment on Keytruda or say anything else to Jay before we move on?
I guess I was wondering, did you get any side effects from the treatment that you've noticed so far?
I think have a little more fatigue. I have some diarrhea, but I don't think I can blame it on the Keytruda. And I'll get this feeling of I'm getting cold, but by the time I go and put a sweater on, I'm warm already. So it's not like chills and fever. And there's Bridget.
Also?
I'm taking Permagon.
Yeah.
Nurse Bridget said I'm tolerating it well.
Did you say Nurse Ratchet?
Yes.
No comment.
He did say Nurse Ratchet. Those who attend UCSF know who he's referring to. Rich, why don't you, because you've been doing such a great job and you've been so quiet right the way through, so why don't you just tell people who are on the telephone what you just found out about MSI?
Well, let's see if I can find it again. Hang on a minute. I'll go click back on my link.
Okay.
This was a paper in the Immuno-Oncology News about Keytruda, and it works by aiding the body's own immune system to fight and kill cancer cells. It's basically a little history on how the immune system works, and the white blood cells called T cells are normally our attack cells, but the cancer hijacks some checkpoints, and one of them is a PD-1 pathway, which allows the cancer cell to hide from our special forces, the T cells. And then that's the reason our own immune system can't really do anything with the cancer, even though it is technically a foreign body, but not sufficiently. The Keytruda started out for breast cancer, for several other types of cancers, some different melanomas. And in May of 17, the FDA granted Keytruda accelerated approval for the treatment of unresectable or metastatic solid tumors with a specific biomarker, which was the microsatellite instability high or a mismatch repair deficit. And with those two, either one of those two items, then it allows the T cells, as had been mentioned, to recognize that the cancer is now a foreign body and to turn the soldiers loose.
Thanks. Thank you so much for that. And so that makes me think, Jay, that you probably must have an MSI high status, because that's what got you approved for the Keytruda. That's my guess. I'm sure they must have measured it in that UCSF 500 panel. I have a question for you. How long did it take for those results to come back between the time you had the biopsy and the time you got your results on that UCSF 500?
I can't answer that too well, but I know that the test was done in October 2017, and UCSF is kind of like a bureaucracy, and some things fall through the cracks. But I didn't really get it in my hands until about a month ago, 2 months ago.
Okay. Because Bill went through a biopsy, lymph node biopsy last week, and they're sending it off. Dana-Farber is sending it off. I'm pretty certain it's the same 500 panel, because this is the Dream Team East and the Dream Team West panel, and I'm pretty certain it's the same. And I just gave him a heads up that it can take a long time. That's one of the benefits of going to Foundation Medicine. Even though the panel's a little bit smaller, it contains all of the genes that would be considered actionable, and it's much quicker. So he's checking into that.
Yeah. This is Jay Kern again.
Yes.
I'll give UCSF a little bit of a break in that Dr. Ryan, when I had him, said, well, there's a hint that it would work, so that must have been months ago. But since then, an article has come out in Cell magazine, and then I talked to a doctor at PCRI, Dr. Evan Yu, and he said, yeah, that's interesting that you have CDK12, and that's when I started to pursue it.
Okay. So let's just finish off for the last 4 or 5 minutes with David. David, what are you thinking that you want to focus on when you meet Dr. Chen tomorrow?
Yeah, so my situation is Gleason 9, metastatic lymph nodes removed on RP, about 5 of them, I believe. Extra whatever involvement, all that seminal vesicle involvement upon surgery, and a lymph node that was left behind that was identified in PSMA because he couldn't get to it, as well as a positive margin. So my PSA has been non-detected less than 0.03 for the last 3 months in surgery, but I'm fully confident that's going to change at some point. I'm on hormone therapy. I'm on Firmagon and bicalutamide, and so I'm thinking, there's this stuff is there. It's just not there in the quantities. But I don't really want to. I'm very averse to doing radiotherapy, even though there would be compelling reasons to do it, just because I have the ATM gene defect. And, talking to your friend, Dr. Bill, there's a definite risk for someone like me to go in there and just get nuked and creates all kinds of havoc for normal, healthy tissue that doesn't know how to heal itself. So a lot of the options, it seems to me, are off the table for, follow-up treatment. And normally I would just do salvage radiation just as, to put a bow on it for radiotherapy, because I think, they say, I think 20% of folks that get RP that are in high-risk category have, there's stuff left behind in the pelvic bed. So I'm sure I'd fall into that category for sure. And radiotherapy would be a logical thing to do as follow-up, but not for me probably. So I'm just trying to think what else I can do. And with an ATM gene defect, there might be an angle for possibly things like Keytruda, even though I don't have measurable PSA. I don't think my insurance would pay for it. Maybe they would. I don't know. they certainly don't want to pay for tumor gene profile, so I'll probably have to pay out of pocket for that, which is unfortunate. I'm not of Medicare age yet, so trying to figure out how to get that. I'm trying to negotiate a better price for that, which is going to be fun. And I'm thinking about maybe doing some sort of immune therapy like revenge, even though there's no real studies to suggest that it's useful in early on before the PSA is starting to take off. My thought is that, if it has a 4-month benefit for overall survival for people that are metastatic and have gone through a bunch of therapies, and if it has a 16-month overall survival for people who take it earlier in their treatment course, that, I don't think it's a stretch to imagine that you can draw a line, back more towards the age, and that it would be more effective even earlier. And I know there's some studies out there right now where they're trying to determine that. So that sounds like a fairly non-toxic approach I might want to take right now. But again, there's a whole payment scheme because nobody's going to pay for this at this point until I've either gone through hormone refractory symptomology or essentially a rising PSA with ADT, and that hasn't happened yet. And I'm not sitting hoping for that. So in the meantime, I'm just trying to kind of bulk up with some things that are off the shelf that are fairly non-toxic, and with the hope that they might have a small benefit. And some of the things I've chosen to do are totally change my diet, which is pretty common for most folks with cancer. Staying away from arachidonic acid producing products like fatty acid that are, from the kinds of foods that I like. So those are all gone. I'm doing olive oil. I'm taking doxycycline every day because there's some literature that suggests that that's actually pretty helpful for suppressing metastatic cancer. And it's relatively non-toxic. It's got a very safe profile from what I've read. And then taking things like curcumin, and not taking statins, but taking red cell yeast extract, which is essentially equivalent in a more, shall I say, natural form. Doing that, and I'm taking berberine, which is the equivalent of metformin, again in the more natural form. But it has the same chemical basis. And the active chemical is very similar to metformin. So that's what I'm doing. And tomorrow when I meet with Dr. Chang, I'm hoping to see if I can get her to help me maybe with this prevenge treatment, or if she knows of a study where I might be able to get involved with PARP inhibitors, something like that, since I do have the ATM genes. I'm just kind of reaching out. And I know it seems like, why worry about it when my PSA is non-detectable, but all the reading I've done it's pretty obvious that definitive cures are far and few between, and that, there's a whole school of thought that, early aggressive treatment is not a bad thing to do unless it's, heavily toxic. So that's why I'm not interested in radiotherapy. Chemo might be a possibility, but again, there's a whole, adverse side effect profile to consider. So I don't know, I'm just kind of swimming out there trying to figure out what to do. And, I'm not trying to worry about it too much, but it's, I get up every day and obviously it's stuff that most guys, it's spending every single day of your life. So, I'm thinking about it a lot and trying to be smart about it and still keep a stiff upper lip every day. So that's about it.
So just a couple of things that I just wanted to recap, What is it that you're taking in lieu of metformin?
Berberine. It's a extract of Oregon grape. It's also in a couple other plants, but it's basically a bigulamide variant, and it's an analog to metformin. It's something you can get over the counter. You don't have to get a prescription for it, but it does work in the same way.
Mm-hmm. And what was the other thing that you said that you were taking? Not the red yeast, but
It's called fermented red yeast extract, and it actually has the active component of I forget which statin it is, but it's the one that most everybody takes.
Right.
It has the same component.
No, but there was something else you said before that.
Oh, doxycycline.
Oh, doxycycline?
Yeah, it's it's a rehabilitated old school antibiotic. It works on the mitochondria.
Yeah, I don't know much about that. Len may know something about that one.
Yeah, it is an old antibiotic. Is that something you take regularly, David?
Every day.
Doesn't sound like a good idea to be taking an antibiotic every day. You're likely to, change the flora in your gut or become resistant to it, or develop bacteria that are resistant to it. But
yeah, I totally get that. I'm sorry, what?
Does your doctor know you're taking the doxycycline?
I haven't told him. I haven't told her that.
How are you getting it? It used to be prescription only. I assume it still would be.
Yeah, it is. I have back channel sources for it, so it's pretty easy for me to get. I mean, I'm doing a lot of nutty stuff. I mean, not really nutty, but I mean, there's some pretty good research to suggest that it's helpful. My long-term plan on this is to kind of bail on it here pretty soon. Although I want to wait till I get through, if I do decide to do chemo, which I may do, I'm thinking if I do chemo or radiation, I want to stay on doxy until I get through that, because there's some evidence to suggest that it's actually enhancing for those two procedures. And I also try and offset it with, I take a pretty high dose acidophilus blend every day, and I do that. I break it apart, obviously, from when I'm taking the antibiotic. I'm only doing it once a day. I'm not doing like a high dose version. And I'm aware that at some point, I guess I got started on it. I went on a trip to Africa after I got diagnosed with cancer with Gleason 9. I thought, I always wanted to go to Africa, so I kind of just emptied the bank account and went with my wife. And I had the choice of either doing a fairly intense anti-parasitic product. I forget the name of it now, but it's actually pretty toxic for malaria, or I could take doxycycline, which has come back into vogue since it's not really, it hasn't been used for a while, and it's actually very effective against malaria, and also, by the way, filariasis, which is elephantitis, which is common in certain parts of Africa. And I just thought, what the hell? I've read some good literature on doxycycline, and I'm going to Africa. I might as well start. And that's how I got the prescription going. Anyway, that's kind of the story on that.
So, I mean, I do agree with Len that I think you should definitely review all of these meds with Dr. Cheng. I mean, she's really a superstar, and she's getting a lot of good press. She strikes me as being somebody that's going to be pretty open, but I don't know that for sure. I know you've met her before and you like her. Where I think I would be concentrating, and where you can do plenty of your own research, is on the clinical trials. And there are probably clinical trials out there for some of these drugs that you would like to participate in, for people that have your profile, where there were locally advanced metastatic lesions, namely the lymph nodes, and possibly, and they're always looking, clinical trials are always looking to get filled. So look specifically for some of the drugs you want to be taking, and lymph node involvement. The other thing is, again, with the immunotherapy, if you haven't already, I suspect you have, because you're very, you're a great advocate on your own behalf. But look for what's going on for people that have an ATM mutation, and see what's in there. I mean, I'd be searching on clinicaltrials.gov for prostate cancer and ATM mutation, and see what, if anything, comes up. And if you can do that before you meet. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I haven't done that yet. That's kind of on my list because, again, I'm really not inclined to want to do radiation therapy, even though I know it can be incredibly beneficial. In fact, if I have a microsatellite instability and all kinds of genetic mutations going on as a result of my ATM gene, which is probably a lot like Dr. Bill, if you can manage to get through the radiation or the chemotherapy, it's actually beneficial. It's just that, can you get through it and not ravage your body in the meantime,
Right. Well, Bill's doing really well on the chemo, but the radiation is a whole nother ball game. And whilst there isn't a lot of evidence, I'm sold on Bill's theory that it really compromises you for radiation, and you're much more susceptible. And there seems to be more belief that if you have a mutation in the BRCA pathway, that it can really do it can do a lot more harm. The radiation can do a lot more harm. So I'd be talking to Cheng about that, but I definitely tonight would be looking and seeing what trials might be available for you, so that you're educated on that and you can discuss with her, because she's going to be on top of that. That's her field.
Yeah, she is. She's definitely on top of it, and she's pretty open-minded. I mean, I don't, she's got her wheelhouse that she's in, which is really where I'm at, which is this whole genetic defect thing. But
right.
I will say on the other side of the coin, I feel like, a lot of these doctors at Seattle Cancer Care Alliance, and these centers of excellence, so to speak, these folks are all publishing physicians, so they have a certain component of their life that is designed around research, and the clinician part of it, is just another part, right? So, when I spoke to her, I got the feeling probably like a lot of doctors, they're like, she doesn't even respond to my emails because I'm sure she gets, slammed with it. So I kind of just have to wait until I meet with her. And when I meet with her, then
I want to say a couple of things quickly, because this is something we should be talking about in more detail, and we're already over time. So I want to cut this, but I will tell you that some of the very best researchers are also some of the most compassionate, best clinicians that I've ever come across. So the two are not mutually exclusive. I mean, what you have to do is you've got to find the doctor that gives you that right balance. And if she's not responding to emails, that's an issue, and that's a heads up. But let's next week when we talk, hopefully you'll be on there and you can talk about the feedback from her, and we can get into that issue a little bit about this research clinician balance that needs to exist.
Sorry, I get that. That's fine. I'm not trying to dump on her or anything. I think she's a very compassionate person. So it's probably just more of an, for me, it's just like, everybody wants as much attention as they can get for this situation. So that's fine. Let's kick the can on that. And sorry if I did a major data dump on everybody. I'm not trying to overload anybody's brain.
All right, well, those were the fireworks. We got the fireworks at the end, because of course, as I said earlier on, it's Guy Fawkes night. And if anybody doesn't know, and Fawkes is not spelled F-O-R-K-S, in case you were wondering. It's spelled F-A-W-K-E-S. So you can all look up Guy Fawkes afterwards and find out why the Brits all let off fireworks tonight. It's their equivalent of the 4th of July. All right. So I think we're done for tonight. Thank you, everybody. And we'll speak to you next Tuesday, right? Yeah, next Tuesday. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Thank you.